Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Thank you for joining today's webinar. Before I get into the details of today's webinar, I'm going to let a few more people trickle in from the waiting room here, and then I'll get into announcing our presenter and presentation for the day. Okay, I think I'm seeing a few more people coming in. So today we have Rulon here, and our presenter is Marwan, and he is the product manager for the indoor line at Rulon. The topic for today is designing with engineered polymer, considerations for the design of engineered polymer ceilings and wall applications. So before we get going in today's presentation, I want to announce a few things. First one, this is AIA approved, so you'll be receiving 1 learning credit after today's presentation. If you were not able to sign up with your AIA number, that will be the first link I drop in the chat. Feel free to fill that out to make sure you receive credit for joining today's presentation. Second thing, the Q&A will be open. Marwan and Aaron here will be answering questions for the last 10 minutes or so of the presentation. Please feel free to drop any comments, any questions in that Q&A or chat me directly, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. Last thing here is we'll be launching a webinar poll about 3/4 of the way through the presentation. This is a really great way to connect with Rulon after in terms of samples, price quotes, technical details, any sort of thing you might need for your project or firm standards. And then last thing I'm going to share with you guys is how to find Rulon on Acelab. Oh, let me just share my one screen so you don't have to see my messy desktop. Okay, so you're looking at Rulon's page right here on Acelab. The best way to find them is start typing it in, hit manufacturers, and then the first one to pop up right there. Once you go down here, you can find some really great information about their product lines as well as their case studies. So if we go down here, today you guys are going to be talking about that Endure line, so the Endure Linear and the Endure Direct. If you click on it right here, you'll be able to go and find the product as well as some really, really great information. CAD details, construction details, 3-part specs, as well as an ability to save it and compare it with other products, saving it to any certain project. And then the final thing here is all this really important performance data. So this will be the second link I drop in the chat. The final link I'll drop in the chat is a way to request lunch and learns or virtual presentations with Rulon. By filling out this form here and some company information, I will get you directly in contact with your local rep. So those will be the 3 links I'll drop in the chat. And then whenever you're ready, Marwan, we can get into today's presentation.
Perfect. Thank you for the introduction, Alyssa. Good morning or good afternoon to those who are joining in. Thank you guys for making it out. Hopefully this is a value-driven presentation and just, we could spend the next hour really informing and educating everyone on what, we've had a lot of success with at Rulon with regard to designing with an engineered polymer product. Because it is a value performance driven type of composite material. So, which, is very, very accessible, and can be integrated into a lot of unique designs that you all have. So without further ado, as Alyssa mentioned, I am the product manager. So I oversee our specific product line as it relates to an engineered polymer system, which we will, touch on here today. As we go through, but yeah, let's get started. So Rulon history, I'll try to keep this brief and just give you a general overview on Rulon and who we are and what we do. So we are the industry leaders in custom acoustical and decorative wood ceiling and walls. We've been in business for over 50 years now. So we're very, very aligned and in tune with a lot of the designs that you all are probably working on within a lot of your projects. So we've seen it all. We are a sell direct manufacturer, privately held, so not publicly traded, which I think has a lot of pros. We're family owned, veteran owned, with our headquarter facility being in St. Augustine, Florida, so Northeast Florida. We do have an additional manufacturing facility with this particular product line, this composite material that is located in Ohio. But we are the industry leaders in what we do. We really try to emphasize a collaborative, sustainable effort. So, we work very, very closely with designers, architects, all the way down to the general contractors and subcontractors. So, all that to be said, we are very much so a vendor, that emphasizes a joint collaborative effort when it comes to designing and supporting the install team so that the design intent that you have comes to fruition in the best way possible. I think one thing that is notable about Rulon that I just like to add is that we are a mission-driven company, and so we allocate a very large portion of our proceeds to charitable organizations developing countries. Some of the photos that you see on the screen are on the right-hand side is our Design for Kids program, where we take some of our excess material, specifically with regard to wood. And we build guitars for children who are in hospitals, or orphanages and things like that. On the left-hand side is going to be our developing country initiative to build homes, in those areas that are less fortunate. I say all of that just it's one of the aspects that I think that makes us unique with being a privately held company. We were founded on Christian principles that are to do well unto others, and so I think that it's a unique aspect of Rulon. But without further ado, we'll get into some of the program overview, what we're going to be discussing. So as Alyssa mentioned, this is an accredited presentation, so you all will receive credits for that. Essentially what we're going to discuss today. I can go as macro or as micro as you all need me to. Definitely feel free to ask questions, at the end. There's a lot that I'm going to kind of skim over, but we're going to be talking about essentially what is a engineered polymer system, based on composition, what are the characteristics of it, how can it be incorporated into your designs, and truly what is the value proposition for that in comparison to some of the other systems that you all are probably accustomed to. This is just another visual demonstration of what we're going to be talking about. So like I mentioned, the composition, how these systems are developed, briefly, the applications that we have been able to service because of the composite material and how it's designed and how it performs, and then some supplemental information on how Rulon and other companies who design or manufacture with engineered polymer can support you all as architects and designers. So composition. Without getting into too much of the technicality, because I think that that's it's a little bit of an overkill. Really, what it boils down to is whenever we're talking about an engineered polymer system, we're talking about a recycled content material that is designed, to withhold or withstand the elements. So it is a proprietary formula compound that is derived from multiple different additives to create a final product. These additives, as we've seen in multiple other applications or industries, as we've steered away from plumbing, metal copper piping, to more of a polymer type of composite material, it comes with a lot of benefits, which we'll talk about today. But again, without getting into all of the chemistry, it is a proprietary blend of different additives, essentially, that are also fire resistant, durable, strong, going to withstand the elements, like I mentioned. So it's a very straightforward system, right? Composite material for simplicity, right? It is, as I mentioned, you are taking compound, you're putting it together, and you are extruding it in a sense. You'll see with some of the things that we discussed today, there's a lot of customization with that. And so you can achieve some of these wood finishes that we, pride ourselves in, that we specialize in. But a lot of these finishes are going to have, we keep in mind whenever we're manufacturing to deliver a very durable system with regard to UV resistance, impact resistance, fire retardancy, like I mentioned, and just, create a very robust product to perform in the way that it was intended, and which is in regards to longevity, lifespan, things of that nature. Because of the nature of the composite material, as you like I mentioned, it's going to have qualities of higher performance, which is going to require less maintenance over time. And so, like I mentioned, as we've steered away from some things like copper piping and metal piping in the same breath, whenever you're working with a ceiling or a wall application of an engineered polymer type of characteristic, you're going to find yourselves, working with a system that's going to hold up the test of time, that's going to look the same from when you install it on day one. It's virtually maintenance free because it's not going to corrode or rust or things like that, which we'll get into here in a little bit. And it is a completely recyclable material at the end of its life cycle, which is, several decades. It's very, very light, so shipping is very, logistics are very friendly, which helps reduce, carbon emissions and things of that nature. Product development. Here in this photo, just showing you there's multiple different areas that you find products or systems that have, an engineered polymer, whether it's the carpet or the furniture. In our case, and in this photo that we helped work with, the decorative extrusions on the ceilings. You can also find them on the window mullions and things of that nature. So it's very, very common in construction as we have today. Without going into too much of the details, and so that we can focus on some other elements. As you all can see here, this is, the base material as it is extruded through a die. And so the whole formula or the whole development side of creating a profile or a system is to basically create the die in which the material is going to extrude through. So you see this this is the case on, window trims and window extrusions, things of that nature. We've just taken the same kind of principle and use it for ceilings and walls. Basically just went through that in the prior slide, so we can kind of skip over this one. So just to show you all, like I mentioned, some examples of what, an extrusion can look like. This is as it relates to some of the Rulon systems that we carry in-house and that we've supplied for several years. You'll notice that these are linear systems here, and they come in various different widths, but we'll talk on those here in just a moment. And I'll demonstrate a couple profiles that I brought. This one right here is just going to be a different type of extrusion. This one being more of a direct attach system, which again, I'll show and demonstrate here as we go through the presentation. So applications, where are, engineered polymer systems, where are they suitable for, right? Why were they designed? We saw a void, in the industry with regard to, architects or designers or developers looking for systems that were going to hold up against the harsh environments. And so as we go through some of these applications, this is just to show you all, some of the areas that these systems are well versed for and that they're specifically designed for. So canopies and soffits is going to be the first one. Obviously, it's an exterior application, and so it's going to be exposed to a lot of various different temperature swings, wind loads, weathering, things of that nature. This is just a photo of a couple of photos of some projects that we've serviced. You'll see here, you're able to utilize the material on the exterior. This was a notable project. I spoke on our collaborative effort, and so as it relates to Rulon specifically, we actually brought in the the designer was working on this job and they were trying to find a system that was going to be used for interior and exterior. That can be a challenge, right? Just because oftentimes you're having to source two different types of material for both of those applications. We actually flew in the designer, the architect, the general contractor, et cetera, to help them navigate with some of our in-house engineers to service this job, which this being Mott Branch Library located in Ohio. This same material was able to be used on the exterior as well as the interior because they were looking for acoustics, but they wanted a similar type of look and system to be used, in that transition from interior to exterior. This one. Just another visual representation of a national account. Aaron, actually, could you go back to the prior one? Just want to show a couple of things. So you'll notice here there's multiple different can light fixtures, ceiling fans, things of that nature. This is a AC Hotel. It's one of the brands that we service here at Rulon specifically. But as it relates to an engineered polymer system, you'll notice that this is a 4-inch module that goes across the canopy. Very, very seamless installation, which I'll demonstrate here in a little bit. But I just wanted to show you all that because of the composite material and the nature of it, it's very well versed to be able to accommodate different types of light fixtures, which I'll show you in the next slide as well. This one being linear light fixtures. There is no problem incorporating these types of fixtures, diffusers, things of that nature with an engineered polymer system and as it relates to Rulon specifically as well. But just to show you all some of the inspiration for soffit conditions canopies that we've serviced over countless jobs throughout the US and internationally. So as an overview for an exterior application, things to keep in mind and where the system really performs is going to be the ease of installation. It's a very, very lightweight material, like I mentioned. It comes out at around 1.6 pounds a square foot. It's because of the nature of the composite material, it's very pressure washer safe. And so you don't have to worry about denting the material or, chipping the material, the face of it, because of some of the finishes that we source. So because it is maintenance free, right? Maybe an annual pressure wash, or if it's an interior application, which I'll go over here in just a little bit, just washing it with a damp cloth using whatever kinds of cleaning sprays will be completely fine. It's not going to distort the color or the finish at all. There's heat reflection and color retention, right? So I mentioned, part of the reason why we developed this system and why it's commonly used in the industry is that engineered polymer systems will hold their finish very, very well depending on the type of films that are sourced or applied to it. There are wind load tests that you can perform, so the system does perform in high wind load areas, which we also have testing for. There's a corrosion resistant element. It's not going to rust. It's not going to oil can. It's not going to corrode over time, rattle, things of that nature, which was a pain point in the industry historically. And like I mentioned, UV resistance, Class A fire rating because of the additives, etc. And the ability to integrate, MEP components and ventilation, things of that nature are very, very easy and accessible with working with the system. Here we'll look over some photos of clouds and interior applications. Because it is suitable for exterior applications, it's obviously suitable for interior applications as well. If it can handle sub-freezing temperatures, it can handle AC and heaters. So what you'll see here, things to point out, are going to be the customization element of the system. It can be used on a ceiling, transitioned down to a wall. Here you'll notice that there is a customization element in that, these panels, for example, they have a black integrated reveal between them, which gives it, a different type of look than maybe a continuous wood look. Because you are extruding profile, you have a lot of control over the finished product, and a lot of consistency as well. And so you're able to achieve different types of looks, and as I mentioned before, integrate lots of diffusers or different kinds of light fixtures, things of that nature. One thing that I note on that prior slide is the trim, because there you incorporate a black reveal, because the base material comes out in a standard color, right? Whether that is which is customizable. Just need to know like what kind of pigment to use, so it doesn't come with like a higher cost. It's just a matter of determining the pigment and the color that you want. But we incorporated a black trim in conjunction with the black reveal to just give it to highlight some of the wood grain finish on this. Just another photo to show a waterfall look from a ceiling to a wall. This is a Fairfield and a Suites, one of the national accounts that we at Rulon supplies. In the left-hand corner, you'll see a 4-inch trim that is installed with the ceiling. And so whenever you have cloud type of ceiling applications, or even a wall that is not perfectly flush, you're able to design or product develop accessory items like we have with deeper trims to conceal some of those MEP components and things of that nature. And with the material being very install friendly and not scratchable but cuttable, right? You're able to accommodate different kinds of geometric shapes, this one being more circular with multiple different can light fixtures. And so there's a lot of room for customization and various design intents whenever you're using the system without it being very lucrative on the installation. This is just a transition from exterior to interior. Again, just showing you all that the same system, you don't have to compromise on the finish or the product. There creates some economies to scale whenever you're working with an engineered polymer system, such as that we have at Rulon. And so here you're able to see that transition along with a transition in the panel direction. So you actually see here towards the left-hand side an expansion joint that is just a component. It's an accessory piece that allows you to either pitch or change the direction of the panels. This accessory item can be matched to the finish of the panels to help conceal it, or like I mentioned in a couple slides prior, it can be a base color to give a different type of look. So there's lots of customization without increasing the costs at all, honestly, just because there is a lot of control with the system. It's not being sourced from multiple different like wood or something like that, which also has its benefits. But because of the control aspect of the system and the manufacturing process, you're able to dictate different kinds of finishes and different profiles and things like that without adding additional cost to it. Just as a brief summary, with regard to the clouds and interior applications, you're able to have drop ceilings. So these cloud features with that deeper trim, you are able to accomplish acoustical properties. So NRC values with the system, opening up the space between the panels and putting some insulation behind it. There's multiple methods of suspension and attachment. We're not reinventing the wheel here. A lot of engineered polymer systems, such as those with Rulon, are designed with the intent to be able to work well with the same types of suspension, hanger wire, struts, direct attach, things of that nature, that the rest of the industry is accustomed to. There are access panel capabilities. I'll touch here and do a demonstration on the fully accessible nature of our system specifically. And like I mentioned, you can accommodate many different light fixtures, again, Class A fire rated, things of that nature. So radius applications, like I said, we've been in the industry for quite some time, so we've seen a lot of different things. One popular type of design is going to be, as you all can see in these photos, sort of that serpentine type of look. And so depending on the manufacturer that you work with, Rulon, we're a custom manufacturer, and so we custom fabricate a lot of our systems to be able to accomplish these type of designs without leaving it to the installer to do in field. So everything comes already prefabricated. We work with the designer and the architect to confirm the radius, and at which point in time we fabricate so that the panels are just snapping into the grid system, as you can see in these photos. So there is no actual altering of the material, the panels themselves and the polymer itself. We're just, changing the radius of the grid so that the panels are engaged into that carrier system without needing to be mechanically fastened or anything like that. Another element of the radius components that we're able to accomplish is going to be, custom radiusing the trim as well. And so as you can see here, you have a concave and convex canopy. You'll notice an expansion joint down the middle of it. Like everything, buildings expand and contract, all materials do. And so we accommodate for all of these things whenever we're looking at the drawings for one of the designs or when we're working with you in the preliminary stage to make sure that all of the factors are considered. But we can custom radius the trim a lot of the times because of the nature of the composite material and the lengths that it's being extruded in. Ours being a standard 18-foot, which because we are custom, we are able to shorten or lengthen as necessary, right? Depending on the design and the best yield and the look that you're trying to get. But because of the length of the material and because of the flexibility of it, oftentimes you're able to achieve these types of radius conditions without actually having to heat fabricate the material itself, just because it has some flexibility and some give. This is just a photo showing a little bit more of an extreme radius that we're able to, accommodate with our systems. And so, as I mentioned, there's concave convex capabilities. The trims are very easy to be radius if necessary. We support all of these supporting, or we provide all of these supporting documents whenever we're going through the engineering phase and providing our custom shop drawings, things of that nature, specific to the project that you are working on. So corrosive environments. Like I mentioned, with regard to exterior applications, corrosive environments can exist in either on the interior or the exterior. And one of the benefits with working with engineered polymer is for some of the points that I discussed earlier, with it being very robust, very durable, very rust resistant, etc. So just to show you all some photos of the systems, right, installed in some corrosive environments. This one happens to be an interior pool application. Oftentimes what I recommend and what I see architects or designers do is that they'll want a little bit more ventilation whenever they're working with the system. And so some of these profiles, these ones being linear right here, you can actually leave the reveal in between the panels open so that air can flow very, very well. There is no moisture collection with the system, right? There's no salt corrosion properties. And so it's very robust, it's very durable to work in these types of applications. This is just a photo of a water treatment plant. Again, oftentimes you're working on projects that may require cleaning or chemicals or things of that nature to be applied to the surface area of a lot of the systems that are in the space. And so because of the robust nature of the material, it can tolerate those chemicals. It can be exposed to chlorine or things of that nature without compromising the integrity of the system itself or changing the finish or things of that nature. So very, very durable, very, very robust. This is just another pool application. This happens to be an LA Fitness. You all might not be able to tell, but this is just a wider profile. This is an 8-inch module with the spacers opened. where they wanted some, because of the height of the ceiling being on the second floor, and to avoid some of the pencil or the more narrow look of the system, they wanted a more wide panel to give a different kind of aesthetic to the space. And so again, just very, very durable, can handle high humidity environments, very robust in that nature. This is a project that we worked on in Hawaii. This is actually, I visited this myself, and you can kind of see towards the right-hand side that this is right on the coast. I think it's approximately 300 yards from the salt air. This, artificial wave that they have right here for this location is all salt water. And so whenever we toured it, the architects that were working on this project, they needed something that was going to hold up, obviously, to the corrosion. And so these ceilings are constantly getting hit with salt spray and things of that nature. And the maintenance is just, a quarterly wipe down. The finish hasn't deteriorated at all, nor will it, just because, again, whenever you're working with a polymer type of system, it's going to have those properties to, withstand those kinds of environments. So just as a brief summary, like I mentioned, right, the system is going to have, rust, corrosion, mold, and mildew, resistant properties, pressure washer safe. We do offer, whenever you're working with a grid system, so whenever you are working with an engineered polymer system, there's going to be a component of attachment, right? And so for ours, as it relates to Rulon, we have a proprietary grid system that the linear panels they engage into. And so one of the things that you want to keep in mind is, although the panels are going to be resistant to the corrosion and whatnot, if you are going to be installing in a very corrosive environment, you want to make sure that the grid as well is going to be able to withstand some of those conditions. And so one of the things that we provide at Rulon, and that I would advise any other manufacturers to ensure that that grid system is powder coated to make sure that it holds up the test of time and performs well. But here are some wall applications just to show you all. Again, as easy as it is to install on the ceiling, I'd say it's even more seamless to install on the wall. This is a Toyota. It's just a national brand that we service. This is our direct attach system that's put right on the wall, where you just need to line it up with the studs and fasten the panels to some kind of substrate to hold its integrity. Here's an education hallway. One of the benefits of working with an engineered polymer system is also going to be the fact that it can take stain, graffiti, markers, things of that nature very, very well and clean them without compromising the finish of the system. So as it relates to Rulon, all of our systems are, with regard to indoor, are graffiti proof. So you can clean them. It's very, very durable to impact. It's not going to scratch. It's not going to chip, things of that nature. This is just another visual showing you all a transition from the ceiling to the wall, and also an upturn on that ceiling to give it somewhat of a fascia. So very, very versatile, very easy to install, very, very affordable in that nature as well. So as I mentioned, there's UV resistant properties. I won't spend too much time on some of these summaries because a lot of what we talk about, I kind of go through in the photos, but very, very durable, scratch resistant, graffiti resistant, very, very versatile system for both ceiling and wall applications. Okay, as we go into some of the engineered systems here, this is just to talk on the project lifecycle. So as it relates to, Rulon, we're a manufacturer, but we are with, the entire project team, coordinating things from a design standpoint to field technical service. And so whenever you work with a manufacturer, you want to make sure that, if the system is going to be the profile that you're using for certain applications is going to fit very well with that application, and that if there are subcontractors or installers that are working with a new system in the field, that you're getting the technical support for them as well, which is part of our initiative here. This is just a demonstration of some of the shop drawings that we provide. It's a very, very simple system. I think that that's one of the benefits of working with an engineered polymer system because of its lightweight properties, because of the simplicity of it, and not having to account for, as much expansion and contraction or absorption, right? This material can be stored interior or exterior. And so we provide these in-house shop drawings so that it is easy to work with whenever you're coordinating or drawing up the details in some of your drawings, going all the way down to contractors being able to navigate these shop drawings and installation guides so that they can so that we can ensure that the system is being installed in a beautiful and aesthetically pleasing way to support your design intent. Some important considerations whenever you're working with it are going to be, the attachment methods. As I mentioned, as it relates to Rulon, while our complete system, the carriers, the panel, the trim, etc., they're all proprietary to Rulon. They are compatible with all of the methods of suspension that are commonly found within the industry. So struts, hanger wire, direct attach, all of the commodity type of installation methods our systems will adhere to. I mentioned the in-house shop drawings and that direct manufacturer involvement. And so yeah, the system is we are here to make the system as simple as possible and as easy of a yes to use on your projects as possible. And of course, if there's any questions that, we have all of our in-house specialists that are available to, help along the way for any troubleshooting. Some other important considerations that, we probably already talked about are going to be things like ceiling height. So the width of the panel, right? Maybe you want a 4-inch module if the ceiling is very, very low versus an 8-inch module or a 6-inch module with regard to the width of the panel if the ceiling is higher. Sprinklers, light fixtures, things of that nature. I mentioned very, very compatible with the composite material and the system, so there's never any issues with that. Accessibility is a very important aspect of any kind of building, being able to have full access to the plenum for mechanical, electrical, or plumbing, or any routine maintenance, which I'll demonstrate here in just a little bit. Acoustical properties are very important, especially for interior spaces. So one of the benefits of working with, an engineered polymer system as it relates to Rulon is that, like I mentioned, you're able to accomplish some NRC values. And then things like seismic expansion joint callouts, all of those things are compatible as well, and that we look for and we design to tailor for. You'll see in this photo right here, I mentioned installation. So it's really great oftentimes to be able to design something, but how it actually turns out is, largely subject to, the talent of the, or the capabilities of the installers. And so the good news is that, a lot of these systems, they're very, very easy to install. You'll see one person handling some material. I discussed earlier about some of the flexibility of the material. And so this is, as an example, the 18-foot long panel that, one individual person is working on, and he's just gradually engaging it into the carrier/grid system above. And so very, very easy to install, doesn't require, lots of different tools and things of that nature, making it also very maintenance friendly. And you don't have to worry about things like denting or cracking or any of those type of scenarios, if you will. With regard to seismic design, it's a very, very lightweight system, as I mentioned, being 1.6 pounds a square foot. We've installed on the West Coast, accommodating some of these seismic design categories, D, E, and F, with attaching the system to a heavy duty grid system or direct attaching, just depending on the local code. If you have any questions on that, we'd be happy to speak with you and kind of find a solution for the application and the project that you're working on. I mentioned there's NRC or acoustical properties with the system, and so really straightforward as it relates to Rulon systems. You leave a gap in between some of the panels with some insulation behind it, and noise is able to travel through and be absorbed through that insulation, giving approximately 0.7 NRC value. So this is where I'll just demonstrate a couple of different items. I think demonstration really goes a long way with conveying value, but just to go through these points prior to. So as I mentioned, the system it's extruded, it runs through the die and it's extruded as a base color. And just to draw on what the industry is commonly known is as an alternative to perhaps like a wood system being the common metal system. If you were to apply like a solid color finish to it, you would have to paint it. Whereas the system in its entirety, I don't know if you all are able to see me. Actually, Aaron, if you want to just very briefly unshare, or if you all can't see, but the system is extruded in its entirety.
Yeah, we can see it very well, Marwan.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. So the system is extruded in its base color. So this is customizable. This can be any kind of pigment or color, etc. And so here I have just like a putty knife, right? And if I were to scratch it, right, or dig into it, you're not going to have chipping of the finish, right? Which just essentially means, less ad orders or less costs for your clients over time. And the look of the system is going to hold up very, very well. I mentioned moisture resistance. So common issues that you might experience with metal, oil canning, rust, corrosion is not going to be the case with working with a polymer type of system. Very durable to impact. So I will just, very briefly, hopefully you all can see me. I have some mock-up systems right here. This being one of the panels that we manufacture, right, on our grid system, not mechanically fastened, just snapped in. And, if you were to put it down really briefly, if you were to, have some kind of an impact to the system, I weigh approximately, 200 pounds, but you can see here, I'm able to stand on it. And because of the flexible nature of the material, the integrity of the system as it is hasn't been compromised. It's still straight, it's still flat, it's and essentially just what that means is you're not going to run into issues such as denting that we commonly see in some of the other systems in the industry. So that's very, very good as well. It also means, when things inevitably happen during installation, whether materials being stacked on top of each other or stored, it's not going to be subject to any kind of damage, right? Just very, very durable. I mentioned very lightweight, install friendly. As I mentioned, it's not mechanically fastened, so really it just comes down to, as it relates to some of the Rulon systems with an engineered polymer, you're just installing the grid, which we provide, and then the panels are just snapping into place. The system does provide thermal insulation, right? So it's not going to conduct heat the way that metal will, right? So if you've ever touched, metal that's baking in the sun, obviously it's going to conduct some heat. It's going to get very hot. That's not the case with a polymer type of system. We discussed cleanability. There's a pressure washing aspect to it, or capability with it. And so it's essentially maintenance free, other than some of the cobwebs or some of the dust, which is very, very good for some of the developers that you work with. And I think one of the other aspects is going to be accessibility. And so as it relates to some of the Rulon systems that we offer, it is a fully accessible system. This is like I demonstrated, this is a assembled panel system. So assuming you had, if this was on the ceiling and you had a light fixture right here that you needed to do some maintenance on, or you needed, access to the plenum for whatever reason, you don't need any special tools. You will just need like a putty knife that you're able to source from your local hardware store. So you don't have to hire specialty contractors to come out. This is something that maintenance people can do at a facility. And essentially, you just have to tuck it in to where the carrier is and pop it out. And now, same thing on the bottom. Not having to worry about damage to the system or anything like that. And now you have full access to the plenum. This is oftentimes a very, very value-driven aspect of the system, just because regular maintenance is necessary, and sometimes access panels can be very unsightly. And so it's just one of the aspects that makes some of our systems, as well as others, really, really value-driven. And so the reinstallation, just to show you all a quick demonstration. Hopefully you all can see. Just involved, because there is no mechanical fastening to the system, just going to involve applying some pressure. And now the system is re-engaged. And looks exactly as it did. So those were some of the demonstrations I just wanted to show to really highlight some of the properties and some of the value-driven aspects of the system. As we discussed performance, a lot of which we already talked on, so I'll kind of skim through some of these. Again, very rigid, very durable, impact resistant, moisture tolerant, things of that nature. We discussed UV resistance. As it relates to Rulon, we only source, very, very durable finishes. So a lot of the films that come on our systems, well, not a lot of them, all of them are UV resistant to be able to withstand, some direct sunlight. So it's going to look the same way it did from the day it was installed, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years down the road. I mentioned the graffiti resiliency of the finish, whether it's a straight extruded solid color or a wood grain laminate finish, both of which can take graffiti and be cleaned without compromising the surface area or the finish itself, which we recommend. Wind load testing. The product has been wind load tested, much like most systems. And so here's just a visual. We have the system installed across the US and internationally. This photo on the right-hand side happens to be a project in Florida where a hurricane came through. On the left-hand side was actually a metal system. On the right-hand side was our indoor system. And as you can see, the metal material got completely blown out to the point where the developers actually decided to just install an engineered polymer, our indoor system, on both. So again, just very rigid, very robust, going to hold up against different environmental applications. We talked about acoustical performance. You are able to achieve a 0.7 NRC with working with some of our systems. Again, just putting some insulation behind it. Life safety and human health impact. So if anyone has any questions with regarding to testing or certifications, we can provide those to you. Alyssa had mentioned where to find those earlier on, so we can kind of go through this one. Class A fire rating for all of our systems, and any engineered polymer system that you do work with, you obviously want it to be Class A fire rated, just so that you don't have any issues with code or conflict with putting it into interior spaces or even exterior. And then here are just a few more visuals before we conclude of some case studies. This happens to be PGA Tour headquarters, which is right down the road in St. Augustine. We always welcome anyone to come and tour our state-of-the-art manufacturing facility. But this project is just a very, very interesting one, and one that we're very proud of. I was actually just there a few days ago to do like a walkthrough and to catch up with some of the staff and the facilities managers. We installed this around 6 years ago. We invite anyone to come down to the players tournament, where you can walk through and see this facility. On the exterior is indoor throughout the entire, I think it's approximately 60,000 square feet of material, where they used a wider profile just because of the height of the ceiling, and then transitioned to a 4-inch profile for the interior, where they wanted acoustics and used some acoustical fabric on the back. But very, very cool project. We invite anyone to see it if you like golf especially. We talked about this one before. This is Mob Branch Library, just another case study where they were able to use the same material, interior and exterior, and accommodate some acoustical properties. We talked about this one as well. This is another national account that we have, Shake Shack, where they have a black integrated reveal. Just wanted to highlight this component to you. So this is a system in its entirety, as you can see, where it has a black integrated reveal. So it's a shiplap type of system where we have a wood grain finish with this black look, like I mentioned whenever we were talking about interior applications. So very customizable. But I think that should conclude the presentation. We could probably get into some questions.
All right. Thanks so much for that presentation, Marwan. We do have a few questions and about 8 or so minutes to answer them. If you do have any additional questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Let me get through the really quick ones first. Someone said, thank you for this presentation, always. Is there a course number associated with this presentation, Aaron or Marwan? If you don't mind dropping it in the chat, we can answer that as we get into the other questions.
Yeah, I can add that into the chat, no problem.
Beautiful. Thank you. So Ethan will be answering that there. The next question, in corrosive conditions, how is the system hung to avoid metal elements?
How is it hung to avoid metal elements? Well, so the system can be suspended either via hanger wire or struts or things like that, to avoid some of those components. I think it really just it depends on the space that you're working with. If you're able to direct attach it to some kind of a framing, maybe like a wood framing, that might do better. As it relates to our system specifically, we manufacture and we factor in all of this. So just to give you all a representation, this is the powder coated carrier on the back of our system. So this will be rust resistant for the longevity of the project. And of course, the panel itself will be resistant to rust. So any other suspension elements, I think would just need to be considered, during the design stage, like what is the depth of the plenum, if there is any, and are you able to direct attach it to, some kind of a framing that is not metal?
Okay, thank you for that. Next question, does it need subframing?
Not necessarily. No, it does not require it. It can be, an element of attachment. So whether that is plywood, whether that is, wood stud framing, like those, or metal beams, or things of that nature that are running through the ceiling structurally. Those can all be used as methods of attachment for the carrier system to direct screw into. But like I mentioned, the ceiling can also be suspended and braced, whether it's interior or exterior.
Cool. The next one is, can you provide an average cost per square feet? And I know that's like a hard question to answer. So if you have any project examples or something to guide the
Yeah.
architect.
No, absolutely. Yeah, so as it relates to Rulon, we don't charge there is no fluctuation in price for our like our finish options. So we keep it very, very consistent. I should have mentioned this whenever I was going over the company overview, but we are a domestic-based and domestic-sourced manufacturer, so we don't import anything from overseas. We're a Buy America, Build America organization, and so we're not exposed to any kinds of tariffs. With regard to square foot price, as it relates to some of our systems, it really just depends on the system itself. And so this module, right, this being our 800 series, this is a 4-inch module with a removable spacer. This would be priced differently than an 8-inch module with an integrated spacer. However, the total square foot cost is very, very competitive at anywhere from the high teens, mid-teens for like laminate specifically. So whether that's a metallic finish on a metallic laminate on the profile to a wood grain, it can be mid to high teens, very low 20s. And it doesn't fluctuate based on the square footage or the volume or things like that, right? It's the unit price is the unit price regardless of the amount of material that is ordered. And so we have a lot of control. I will mention this one last thing. Because of the nature of working with an engineered polymer, because you're sourcing like additives and component like a compound, you're not subject to volatile price supply chain issues, right? It's more accessible. And so we haven't had a price increase, for an example, in the last 4 years. The last time we did was during COVID, at which point, like obviously there was very significant supply chain issues, but very, very stable markets. So you can count on very, very affordable price points.
Awesome. That was a great answer. Next one is a comment just saying thanks for showing the projects at the end. And then we have here, I think you mentioned recyclability. Recyclability. Can you talk a little more about the product's end of life cycle?
Yeah. So the product is fully recyclable, right? As any kind of polymer is. And so there are local organizations that will recycle polymer. The life cycle, there's many studies, honestly, on it. I mean, the additives that we use are very, very robust. And so we have, projects that have been installed for, 30 plus years that look the exact same, that have never had any issues. It's hard to pinpoint like an exact lifespan because it fluctuates, slightly based on the environment that it is in, but on average, you could expect, between, approximately 30 to 40 years, and a very like extreme fluctuating environment. Obviously, if it's on an interior application, then it would hold up for indefinitely, essentially. But we've seen projects that have it's hard to pinpoint exactly what that life cycle is, but needless to say, it's significantly longer than alternative materials just because of the composite material.
Awesome. I think we have time for one more. And anyone else whose questions don't get answered, Marwan and Aaron are able to follow up with you directly, and you have their contact information. So for this last question, what happens if a panel gets damaged? Can I replace just one?
Yeah, so we always advise just having a little bit of attic stock. We always factor in a little bit of waste factor whenever we're working with contractors, and so that the owner has a couple of panels or a couple of trim pieces just, in their attic stock. It's very lightweight, so there's not a lot of storage requirements. So that's how I would recommend that. But obviously, if there is like an ad order and we need to manufacture some, because there isn't any, then we can help with that as well.
Awesome. One more comment coming in saying thanks for an informational webinar. And I think that's what we have time for today. Marwan, Aaron, do you have any additional comments or anything before we end today's presentation?
No, we're very, very open to having or engaging with any conversations that you all might, like to have as it relates to any projects that you're working on. Like I said, we've been doing this specifically and specializing in it for several years. And so, if there's any samples or film booklets or finish options or what have you, any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Awesome.
I'd also add we do have a designing with wood webinar or a presentation that we can put on as well, and we always invite people, as Marwan mentioned, to come take a tour of our factory in St. Augustine.
Awesome. Cool. That sounds great. Thank you both for a great presentation, and I hope you have a good rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.